City officials look for options on the Resolute reassessment. Flames destroy a Dawson Road residence. And dignitaries from around the world gather in South Africa. Good evening and thank you for being with us. Thunder Bay's city manager says council has the ability to raise taxes on companies like Resolute by 15% or even more if they decide to.
The owners of the local pulp mill are trying to have the assessed value of its property drop from $74 million down to as low as $25 million. Communities that have been hit with similar decisions by the Municipal Property Assessment Corporation are firing back by hiking taxes. Last week, Dryden City Council approved a 15% increase on the Domtar mill. The increase will recover $472,000 of the $1 million tax reduction Domtar received for 2013. Council in Fort Frances is looking to enact a 15% increase at their meeting tonight. City Manager Tim Camiso says increasing the tax rate is an option, but he says discussions are still continuing with Resolute ahead of next month's Assessment Review Board hearing in case a settlement can be reached.
I'm not saying that there will be, but that's the discussions that, council will have to kind of determine what its options are. But, they range all the way from settling to looking at the tax policy. And we still are not in a position where we've firmed it up, but I can assure you, council's going to do whatever it can to protect the tax base.
The one difference from Thunder Bay and other smaller communities is a 15% hike on large industrial tax rates would impact more than one company. Council will be meeting in closed session tonight to further discuss the latest developments on the assessment appeal.
A Dawson Road residence is completely gutted following a fire that broke out in the basement of the home on Sunday evening. Thunder Bay Fire and Rescue spent 3 hours battling that blaze that began around 7 o'clock in the evening. 5 pumpers were called to the scene along with an aerial unit. Flames spread quickly and could be seen billowing out of the house. Thunder Bay police were also brought in to help control traffic along Dawson Road while firefighters worked. Crews remained on the scene until just after 9 this morning. Fire Prevention Officer Paul Bureau said at least one of the homeowners arrived as the blaze broke out.
Last night when they arrived on scene, the flames were coming out of it's an A-frame, so the A-frame windows. There was also, the basement was fully involved, but the windows weren't breached yet. The homeowner was outside with her pets, so no injuries, and no injuries to any firefighters.
The cause of that fire is still unknown.
Having a warm place to sleep at night is something most people take for granted. For those who live below the poverty line, Thunder Bay Shelter House is the only place to stay warm. When temperatures begin to dip, their numbers start to rise, and that has shelter officials worried about the winter season ahead. Courtney Rutherford reports.
We have been full to capacity since fall, so our numbers are not dipping below our maximum capacity very much at all.
With recent temperatures well into the minus double digits, the executive director of Thunder Bay Shelter House is feeling concerned. Patty Haidu says on any given night, 62 people are forced to use the facility, and the demand only continues to grow.
Sometimes there are people that we can't actually accommodate within our doors, but we have a fairly flexible policy where we can allow people to stay in our vestibule, even sleep on the benches in the vestibule if they're too intoxicated for admission. And we work very closely with our emergency service providers as well to try and make sure that people are placed in a facility that's best meets their needs, as few as there are.
Haidu says until there's a handle on supportive housing, the homeless situation in Thunder Bay will only get worse during the winter season. The harsh reality of this situation is also being felt by emergency medical services, who are responding to calls each day. EMS Chief Norm Gale says it's important that his team has a strong working relationship with the shelter house during this time of year.
We respond to calls here. And the population that the shelter house serves are the same population that we serve in large parts. So when we're working together, when we're working in concert, it helps people and it's better for people.
Haidu is planning to launch the cold weather plan by the end of the year. The program will maximize the amount of shelter beds available and also alleviate some of the calls EMS currently attends to each day. Courtney Rutherford, TBT News.
Back to Thunder Bay City Council for a moment. New streets, homes, townhouses, and apartments. They're all part of a new subdivision being proposed for the city. The development, known as Stage 4 of the Dawson Heights subdivision, would be built on the western end of Wardrobe Avenue. An application, which has already raised some concerns, will go before council tonight. The subdivision would include 15 lots for single detached homes, 20 townhouses, and 5 sixplexes. 2 new roads are also being proposed. The developer has already constructed stages 1 and 2 of the subdivision, and stage 3 work is underway. Still, neighbors in the area have written to the city expressing concern over the multiple unit dwellings. City planners are recommending the application be approved. No price tag for the development has been given, but the project is expected to begin in the near future.
As usually happens, the arrival of winter weather has put a bit of a chill on new housing starts in Thunder Bay. According to Canada Mortgage and Housing, there were 16 new single-detached home starts in the city in November and no multi-unit starts. That brings totals for the year to 184 single-detached and 131 multi-unit starts. Both totals are down about 13% from numbers recorded in 2012, but the numbers still remain well above the 15-year average for the city.
Friday's Northern Leaders Gathering in Timmins was the subject of some criticism at Queen's Park today. That meeting provided a forum for members of the Wynne Cabinet to meet with municipal and First Nations leaders in support of the government's Northern Growth Plan. But NDP MPP Gilles Bisson says the talks produced nothing of substance to address the problems of the North. It's a claim the Northern Development Minister was quick to dismiss.
Where's the beef? Where is there going to be change in the policies that this government has put forward that has hurt Northern Ontario? We lost Xstrata. Why? Because of high energy prices in the city of Timmins. We lost forestry jobs. Why? A large part due to your own forced tenure policies that your government put in place. So I ask you again, tell me one policy that you've changed from Friday morning to Saturday morning as a result of that Northern Summit.
The member is being remarkably disingenuous, particularly related to the extraordinary work that we've done with Northern leaders related to the Northern Ontario Growth Plan. I think the member also knows, in terms of the Forest Tenure Modernization Act, we are now seeing involvement by First Nations in a way that we've never seen before in terms of management of our Crown forests.
Premier Kathleen Wynne has apologized for the lasting pain and loss suffered by hundreds of former residents of a provincial institution for the developmentally disabled. Wynne says she's sorry for the alleged abuse at the now shuttered Huronia Regional Centre in Orillia. She says the province broke faith with some of its most vulnerable residents by exposing them to neglect and abuse within the very system that was meant to provide them care. The apology is part of a $35 million settlement that was approved last week in a class action suit against the province over the treatment at Huronia.
Now that Thunder Bay's new courthouse building is nearly complete, another massive construction project is starting to take shape on the city's south side. The $83 million Centre of Excellence for Integrated Senior Services is being built on Lily Street. St. Joseph's Care Group is creating the 416 new long-term care spaces to replace beds at 3 outdated seniors' homes. Jonathan Wilson reports.
Work crews with Bondfield Construction will be busy throughout the winter building the outer shell for this 7-story seniors' home known as the CEAS. St. Joseph's Care Group CEO Tracy Buckler attended the groundbreaking ceremony here in May. It's a 2-year construction project, and she admits it's been a long time coming to see this big project take shape.
In fact, it was 2007 when then Minister George Smitherman made the announcement of the Centre of Excellence for Integrated Senior Services, and so it has taken quite a number of years to get to this point, and it's on time, it's on schedule, on budget for the construction schedule.
This is Phase 2 of the CEAS project. Phase 1 saw the construction of the Sister Lila Greco supportive housing complex next door. Those 132 apartment units cost $22 million to build. This building will cost $83 million and will contain 416 long-term care beds. Another 32 long-term beds will eventually be added on to Hogarth Riverview Manor as part of the overall CEAS project.
The addition will replace Grandview Lodge, Bethany Nursing Home, and Dawson Court. So that's 410 residents that live in those 3 homes right now, and then an additional 38 beds will be added to the system, which are certainly well needed at this point in time.
Grandview Lodge and Dawson Court are both more than 50 years old. The seniors living at Grandview have no doubt been watching these tall elevator shafts go up just down the road on Lily Street. Buckler says some are excited for the move, but there's some trepidation as well.
The homes where the residents live right now are their homes, and they really love where they are for the most part. And so I think it's exciting on one sense to be moving into a new building, but it's also a bit stressful when people have lived in their home that they're accustomed to, whether it's Bethany Nursing Home, Grandview Lodge, or Dawson Court for a number of years, then it can be a very stressful time for seniors to have to relocate as well.
For those hundreds of seniors who do move in here sometime in 2015, the change of scenery will no doubt be like comparing night and day.
You know what? A new build is always up to date. It's modern. It has washroom facilities, eating areas, lots of activity space, things like that that are not always available in older buildings. So a new building is pretty exciting, and it's going to be a very nice place.
Jonathan Wilson, TBT News.
Officials at the Thunder Bay Health Sciences Center say their crackdown of smoking on hospital property is working. The enforcement of the decade-old smoking rule began September 30th. 2 months later, no tickets have been issued. Hospital officials wouldn't allow our cameras to shoot video of anyone disobeying the smoking ban, but people have been spotted lighting up in very public areas, including at the entrance to the emergency department. Fresh cigarette butts are also visible around the hospital grounds. Executive Vice President Dr. Mark Henderson says despite that, he believes smokers are getting the message.
I think overall it's been very successful. It's if you walk around the hospital or just walking in and out to your car, you can see that there are far few people smoking. In fact, you don't really see them smoking at all. And you will see people leaving the property, which of course they're entitled to do, to smoke. But there's clearly been a major difference since September the 30th.
Under the terms of the ban, people aren't allowed to smoke anywhere on the hospital grounds, even in their cars. People can walk to Golf Links Road or Oliver Road to light up, but patients with IVs aren't allowed to leave the hospital. Henderson says he's had good feedback from smokers whenever he's approached them about the crackdown.
No, we've certainly warned people, but most of the people we see are very reasonable. We do regular walk-arounds at the grounds, and I myself have done them. And if we find somebody smoking, and I've usually just said, do you know this is a non-smoking area now? And they're usually very polite, and they put the cigarette out right away, and we just have a chat about health and smoking and in general.
Whenever the first charge is laid against a smoker on hospital property, the fine could cost up to $200.
It's going to be a short stay in Thunder Bay for the city's Big Lots store. Big Lots opened at the end of October at the former Liquidation World location at Northwood Mall. But there is now word that the discount outlet will be shut down in the near future. The operation's parent company, Big Lots Incorporated, says it's part of a move to close 78 of their retail stores countrywide. The company says it simply hasn't been able to gain the traction in the Canadian market that it had anticipated. There is no word yet on the exact date of the closure.
Well, many refer to the holiday season as the season of giving. That's an ideal that certainly holds true for many of the students and staff at Confederation College. It was revealed today that this year's charitable efforts at the college raised well over $58,000. More than $44,000 will be donated to the United Way, which provides support to 29 local organizations. The remaining $14,000 is allocated to the college's emergency food bank. In addition, 3,700 canned food items were also collected. More than 200 students accessed the food bank last year. Student Union President Katie Arpin says it's an essential service.
It's hard to make ends meet as it is, so having this extra support and resource is just extremely important for our students.
The partnership between United Way and Confederation College is great because it's a joint campaign, and what I mean by that is making one ask to the employees here instead of multiple asks and hundreds of asks out there. So they consolidate that all into this particular campaign time, as you saw, and it's a fantastic way to be able to raise funds for the community.
All the money was raised through donations, product sales, and competitions organized by school departments.